Hey guys, here's day 2 of your 6.1 notes. We're still working with operations on functions. So yesterday we saw the notation that they use when they want you to add two functions together, when they want you to subtract two functions, when they want you to times two functions together, and when they want you to divide two functions. So the problems that you did in yesterday's notes, they all involved x. You used the function as they were, and you just added f of x plus g of x. You took f of x and you minus g of x. It was all still done in terms of x. What they're going to do today is let you do it with numbers. So it actually, if you ask me, I think it's a little bit simpler. Okay? All right, so let's give it a try. Okay, so look at example 1. They're still giving you an f of x function. So this is the function f. When you plug an x into it, this is the rule that it has to follow. This is what's going to happen to that input. All right, this is the g of x function. So this is the function g. When you plug an x in, this is what's going to happen to that x value. You're going to plug it in, times it by 2, and minus 5. All right, so now in the first example, they want you to find f plus g. So that's adding two functions together of 3. So the way I do this is I kind of treat it like two separate problems. If this was f plus g of x, then we would have taken f of x and added it with g of x. But instead of working with x, they've given you an actual number to work with. So this literally means to do f of 3 plus g of 3. So I treat this like two separate problems. F of 3, it has a value. I have to plug the number 3 into function f and see what number comes out. And I'll get that number. And then I have to find g of 3. I have to plug 3 into the g function and see what number comes out. So then I'll take his output and I'll add it with the number that came out for f of 3. So I treat it like two separate problems. First, you have to find out what does f of 3 equal. So let's go off to the side. Well, f of 3 means I have to plug 3 into function f. So let's do that. If I plug 3 into function f, I have to do this to it. So it's going to be negative, plug in 3 and square it, plus 3 times plug in 3 for x, and then minus 2, right? So now let's figure out what this is. So if I do order of operations, I always do exponents first. So 3 squared is 9, times 9 by a negative or a negative 1, and now it's negative 9. Positive 3 times 3 is positive 9, and then minus 2. All right, in the order they appear, negative 9 plus 9 is 0, minus 2, well, 0 minus 2 is negative 2. So f of 3 literally equals negative 2. So I'm going to put a negative 2 right there, because that's what f of 3 is. And then I'm going to take negative 2 and I'm going to add it with whatever number I find for g of 3. Well, in order to find g of 3, I have to go off to the side and I have to plug 3 into the g of x function. So if I plug 3 into g, we'll come up here. If you plug 3 into g, I have to plug 3 in right there. So it'll be 2 times 3 and then minus 5. Well, PEMDAS says to multiply first, so 2 times 3 is 6, minus 5 is 1. So g of 3 equaled 1. So I can come over here and put a 1 in for g of 3. So now all I have to do is add negative 2 plus 1. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. So that's what f plus g of 3 will equal. So I literally treat it like two separate function problems. First, I find a number for f of 3, then I find a number for g of 3, and then I just add those two numbers together, okay? All right, now again, you could have come right here, guys, and plugged this right into your calculator exactly the way I wrote it and let it do the whole thing for you. All right, let's try another one. Look at example B. Now they want you to find g minus f of negative 2. That literally means to take g of negative 2 and subtract f of negative 2. So treat this like two separate problems. First, let's get a number for g of negative 2 by plugging negative 2 into the g function. So if I find g of negative 2, g of negative 2 means I have to plug negative 2 into the g of x function. So plug negative 2 in. That'll be 2 times negative 2 minus 5. 2 times negative 2 minus 5. Now again, you could plug this into your calculator right here. What is 2 times negative 2 minus 5? Well, 2 times negative 2 is negative 4, minus 5 more, it's negative 9. So g of negative 2 is literally negative 9. I'm going to take negative 9 and I'm going to subtract whatever number I get for f of negative 2. So go off to the side. Let's find out what f of negative 2 is. Well, to find f of negative 2, I have to plug negative 2 into the f function. So plug negative 2 into the f function for the x's. So it's going to be negative 2 goes in and it's squared. Then I have to plus 3 times negative 2, and then I have to minus 2 still. Now again, if you want, just plug this right into your calculator exactly the way I wrote it and let it do all the work for you. Otherwise, negative 2 squared is 4. 4 times that negative sign makes it negative 4. A positive 3 times a negative 2 is negative 6, and then minus 2. Right in the order they appear, because we add and subtract from left to right, negative 4 minus 6 more is negative 10, and then bring down the minus 2. Negative 10 minus 2 is negative 12. So f of negative 2 is negative 12. So now I can put negative 12 in for f of negative 2. So really what I'm being asked to do is take negative 9 and subtract negative 12 from it. Well, what happens to minus minus? It becomes plus. So what's negative 9 plus 12? It's 3. The answer to this question is 3. So again, instead of you having to work with x's and just add f of x with g of x or subtract g of x and f of x, they're giving you a number to actually plug in now so you can work with numbers instead of x's. All right, let's try another one. What if they asked you to find f times g of 5? Well, this literally means to take f of 5 and times it with g of 5. So treat them like two separate problems. First, find out what f of 5 is equal to. So f of 5, I have to plug 5 into f of x. So I have to plug 5 into this function right here. So minus 5 squared plus 3 times 5 and then minus 2. So that'll be minus and then 5 squared plus 3 times 5 and then minus 2. And again, if you want, just plug this right into your calculator and hit enter and it'll do everything for you. Otherwise, it's going to be 5 squared is 25, but now times it by that negative or negative 1 and it's negative 25. Positive 3 times 5 is positive 15 and then minus 2. Well, in the order they appear, negative 25 plus 15 is negative 10 and then minus 2, I get negative 12. So f of 5 is negative 12. So that's going to be negative 12. Then I have to times it with whatever number I get for g of 5. So let's go off to the side. Let's find out what g of 5 is equal to. So that means I have to go to function g and plug a 5 in. Well, if I go to function g and plug a 5 in, that's going to be 2 times 5 minus 5. So 2 times 5 and then minus 5. 2 times 5 is 10, minus 5 is 5. So g of 5 is 5. So now I can put a number 5 in for g of 5. So at the end of the day, you have to multiply negative 12 with 5. So what's negative 12 times 5? It's negative 60. And that's your answer. Okay? So again, if they just have f times g of x, then you just have to take the f of x function with x already in it and times it with the g of x function with x already in it. But if they're going to give you a number right here, that means they're giving you a number to plug into each function and you get to work with numbers instead of x's. So I like these a little bit better. All right, let's do one more of these. What if they asked you to find g of g divided by f of 0. That literally means to take g of 0 and divide it by f of 0. Okay, well, let's get numbers. First, we have to find out, well, what is g of 0 equal to? So go off to the side and let's find g of 0. That means I have to plug 0 into function g. So go to function g and plug a 0 in. 2 times 0 minus 5. So that's going to be 2 times 0 minus 5. Well, 2 times 0 is 0. Bring down the minus 5. 0 minus 5 is negative 5. Okay, so g of 0 is negative 5. So g of 0 is negative 5. I have to divide it by whatever I get for f of 0. Well, now we got to find out what f of 0 is. So to find out f of 0, that means I have to go to function f and plug 0 in. So go to function f and plug a 0 in for these x's. So that'll be minus 0 squared plus 3 times 0 and then minus 2. Well, 0 is great. 0 squared is 0. 0 times a negative or a negative 1 is 0. Positive 3 times 0 is 0. And then bring down the minus 2. So 0 plus 0 minus 2 is negative 2. So now f of 0 is negative 2. So now I can put negative 2 in for f of 0. So literally what you have to do is take negative 5 and divide it by negative 2. Well, negative divided by a negative is positive, and 5 over 2 doesn't divide or reduce, so it just stays as 5 over 2. Or, since it's a nice decimal, you can say it's 2.5. Okay, I would take either one of these answers. All right, perfect. So again, that's how you work with numbers when they have numbers in here, okay? All right, there's one other thing they put in this section, and it can be a little bit hard in the beginning, but we're going to do it with numbers first before we see it with x's to make it a little bit easier. So the next thing, and it's the last thing they have in this section, is called the composition of functions. So basically what you've done with functions so far is you've plugged numbers into functions. Well, when you have the composition of functions, this is when one function gets plugged into another function. So the notation they use, it looks like a multiplication dot that they forgot to fill in. So some years I have students call this fog or goff. This is literally the f from the f of x function. This is an open circle, and then the g from the g of x function. So this is what they use when they want you to compose two functions, when they want you to plug one function into another function. I'm not a huge fan of this notation. This is what it means. When you see this, it means the same thing as f of g of x. So this is the notation that I like better because I feel like it makes more sense. You work from the inside out. First, you plug x into the g function and you get an output called g of x. Then you plug the entire g of x function into the f of x function. So it can take a little getting used to, but like I said, we're going to do it with numbers first, and it's a little bit easier to do with numbers. But this is the notation you have to get used to. All right, if they put this, g of f of x, then this is an open circle, which means they want you to compose the two functions. It means they want you to plug f into g. So it means g of f of x. So again, you work from the inside to the out. So first you would plug x into f, get an output called f of x, and then you would plug f of x into the g of x function, okay? All right, tomorrow we'll see it with x's, or I'm sorry, the following day. Today we're gonna try it with numbers first. All right, so here's my tip. I almost treat these like a puzzle. You're gonna start on the inside and you're gonna work your way out. Okay, so here we go, let's try it. So I've given you three different functions. I've given you a function f, a function g, and a function h. When you plug an x into f, this is what happens to that input. When you plug an x into g, this is what happens to that input. When you plug an x into h, this is what happens to that input. So pay very close attention to what letters or what function you have to plug into. All right, so look here. What if they asked you to find f of g of 2? This is a composition, but we're doing it with numbers instead of x's, so it's a little bit easier. All right, so we're going to start on the inside, and we're going to work our way out. So the first thing you're going to do is take the 2 on the inside, and you're going to plug it into g. You got to find g of 2 first. So if you find g of 2, that means you have to plug a number into function g for x. So go up to function g, and you're going to plug a 2 into function g. So that'll be 4 times 2 plus 1. Well, what's 4 times 2 plus 1? That's 8 plus 1, that's 9. So that means that g of 2 is 9. Well, now you're going to be finding f of 9. Now you're going to find out what you're going to take whatever number g of 2 became, and you're going to plug that number into f. So now 9 is going to be plugged into f. So now you have to find f of 9, which means you have to go to function f and plug 9 into it. So I'm going to plug a 9 into this one. So it's going to be 2 times 9 squared minus 3 times 9. Oh, sorry. All right, so again, let's let the calculator do all the hard work here. So let's plug this into our calculator, right? It's going to be 2 parenthesis 9 squared, and then minus 3 times 9. Hit enter. And it's 135. So this is 135, and that's your answer. That's what f of g of 2 is. First you plug 2 into g, get a number. We got 9. Then you plug that number into the outside function f. So then we had to find f of 9. And when we found f of 9, we got 135. And then that's your final answer. Okay? So again, these ones could take some getting used to, but let's try it again. Okay. Let's say they asked you to find h of f of -1. Well, again, I'm not a huge fan of this notation. I think it's much easier to see what's going on in the other notation. So just take this, take the first letter, h, parenthesis, next letter, f, parenthesis of -1, and then close it and close it. So this means the same thing as that. And I think this is easier to see. So we're going to work from the inside out. So first we're going to take -1 and we're going to plug it into f. So that means we have to find f of -1. Let's go off to the side. F of -1. That means we have to go to function f and plug -1 in. So that means we're going to go to function f and we're going to plug -1 in for his x's. So that's going to be 2 times -1 squared, and then minus 3 times -1. And again, if you want, just to show you, you could plug this right into your calculator and let it do all the work for you. 2 parenthesis -1 squared minus 3 parenthesis -1, close it, hit enter. It's 5. So this equals 5. So that means f of -1 got you 5. Well, now you have to take that answer and plug it into h. So you have to find h of 5. So I have to plug 5 into function h now. Well, let's go do that. So if I have to plug 5 into function h, let's see, it's going to be 3 times 5 minus 5 divided by 2 times 5 minus 1, because that's what the h of x function says to do. So what do we get? We get 3 times 5 is 15. 15 minus 5 is 10. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 minus 1 is 9. So you get 10 over 9, 10 ninths. Reduce it to a smaller fraction if it does, but it doesn't. So you can literally leave it as 10 over 9. Okay? All right, perfect. All right, let's try one more. Let's try a big one. What if they asked you to find f of g of h of 0? Okay, well, again, we work from the inside out. So take 0, plug them into the first function h. So the first thing we have to do is find h of 0. Okay, so if I find h of 0, that means I'm going to go to function h and I'm going to plug in 0. So 3 times 0 minus 5 divided by 2 times 0 minus 1. Okay, what are we going to get? Well, 3 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 5 is -5. 2 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 1 is -1. -5 divided by -1 is 5. So that means h of 0 is 5. So now I have to plug 5 into the next function, g. So now I have to find g of 5. Well, if we find g of 5, I have to go to function g and plug in 5. So that'll be 4 times 5 plus 1. 4 times 5 plus 1. Well, that's 20 plus 1 is 21. So that means I got 21 from g of 5. So now I got 21. So now I have to plug 21 into the outside function, the last function, f. So now I have to find f of 21. So that means I have to go to function f and plug in 21. So let's do that. So that'll be 2 times 21 squared minus 3 times 21. So that'll be 2 times 21 squared minus 3 times 21. Well, I'm just going to plug this one into my calculator because I think I'm going to get a big number with that 21 squared. So 2 times 21 squared minus 3 times 21. Hit enter, and I get 819. So the answer to this one, this whole problem, is 819. That's your final answer. Okay? All right. I believe your homework tonight is on quizzes. All right? So look for your assignment on Google Classroom. That'll probably send you a link on quizzes. Okay? All right. Good luck, guys. And please text me if you have any questions. I am here to help you. Good luck.